At 6, no high-speed rail lines north of Birmingham as the Prime Minister pulls the plug.
I am ending this long-running saga. I am cancelling the rest of the HS2 project.
The rail line that was destined for Manchester scrapped from a stage here in Manchester.
In Leeds, people are wondering what this means for east-west travel across the north of England.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. HS2 has been one of the government's flagship projects for more than a decade. It was an ambitious project to link London with the north of England and the East Midlands, but costs spiralled and it was scaled back. The eastern leg of HS2 was cancelled 2 years ago. Now, Birmingham to Manchester has also been scrapped, as well as the line to East Midlands Parkway. We'll be getting reaction from all along this network tonight. Our transport correspondent Katie Austin is in Birmingham. Our North of England correspondent Danny Savage is in Leeds. But first, let's go to our political editor Chris Mason, who's at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester.
Sophie, for at least 3 weeks, the plug has been poised to be pulled on a big chunk of HS2. Today, it was yanked out. The Prime Minister acknowledged it was a controversial decision, but he insisted it was the right call, even though there are plenty, including in his own party, who think it is a huge mistake. And then it was to the crux of this speech, the proposed high-speed rail line between Manchester and Birmingham, scrapped.
I am ending this long-running saga. I am cancelling the rest of the HS2 project. And in its place, we will reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country. This means £36 billion of investment in the projects that will make a real difference across our nation.
This would include, he promised, an extension to the West Midlands Metro, building a tram system in Leeds, electrifying the main rail line in North Wales and upgrading
the A1, the A2, the A5, the M6.
Well, the decision on the high-speed rail line has certainly divided opinion. The ambition was big, but so too, as it turned out, was the cost. Our transport correspondent Katie Austin is in Birmingham for us tonight.
Yes, Sophie, for years HS2 was the country's flagship transport infrastructure project, albeit one on which projected costs had more than tripled since it was first proposed. Today, a huge change of emphasis, of priorities. Birmingham will still get its new high-speed link with London. The rest of the project is shelved, with the money going elsewhere.
The HS2 story has involved predictions of economic benefits, ambitious engineering, but also ballooning costs, delays and changing plans. The latest chapter is the most dramatic yet.
An alternative, which in place of one delayed and overrunning project, will now begin hundreds upon hundreds of new projects, large and small, road and rail, bus and train, covering the whole country.
The London to Birmingham leg, currently being built, will be completed, with services initially ending in West London before a Euston terminus comes later. It has a price tag of at least £45 billion in 2019 prices, with more than £22 billion spent so far. The stretch to Crewe was due to cost up to £7 billion, with around £1 billion already spent, and the line on to Manchester would have cost £19 billion, again in 2019 prices, with a smaller amount spent so far. Both of those are now scrapped. HS2 trains would instead get to and from Manchester on existing track from just north of Lichfield. It means the journey time between Manchester and Euston would be cut from just over 2 hours now to around 1 hour 40 minutes, not the 1 hour and 11 minutes had the rest of HS2 been built. It also means no extra space for passenger services or freight to ease pressure on the congested West Coast main line. One former HS2 chairman said the UK would lose connectivity and credibility.
Do leaders like yourself bear some responsibility for letting it get so over budget?
Could it have been done more effectively? Yes. But the government also bears a significant amount of responsibility. Decisions taking far too long.
Construction hasn't really got going on the second parts of HS2, but there's already been an impact. More than 400 properties have already been bought up between Birmingham and Manchester.
Through there and through there.
In Staffordshire, this farmer has been forced to sell land his family have tended for generations.
Yeah, it makes you cry.
It's very, very difficult emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the local tea room, other residents told us damage had already been done.
For me, I had to make a decision with my wife. Do we sell up and go once we'd heard about the train? Many people locally have done that.
I'm struggling to find the words of what HS2 has been like dealing with for an awful lot of people.
For me, it's like a corridor of sadness that follows HS2.
Some will argue it was never the right plan and not worth the huge cost, but many businesses and northern leaders say an opportunity has been squandered. Katie Austin, BBC News.
The Prime Minister says the money saved will be poured into transport links in the north of England, the new Network North, as he called it, with every single one of the new projects being delivered faster than HS2. So better rail links between Manchester and Liverpool, a tram service for Leeds and upgrades for roads such as the A1 and the M6. Let's go to Leeds now. Our North of England correspondent Danny Savage is there.
Yes, Sophie, for people living in northern England, some of what was pledged today does sound very familiar. A tram scheme here in Leeds has been talked about for more than 25 years. But it really finally happened now? And boosting and cutting journeys across the Pennines, east to west, has been a familiar topic for people here. Now, what the figures pledged today by the Prime Minister are very impressive, but don't hold your breath waiting for them. Trains in the north, plenty of people use them.
So the station would be just over there.
In Leeds, the idea of HS2 coming to town was axed a while ago. But for those pushing for better economic hope for the north, losing the Manchester leg is devastating.
People here in the north of England earn £8,000 a year less than their counterparts in London and the South East. And that's because we have lower productivity. Unreliability, as well as long journey times and poor frequency, is a significant issue for the north's economy.
The dream was that HS2 would link into a much improved east-west link across the Pennines. So what's the reality today? This was my experience last week.
Monday evening, been working in Manchester all day today, was due to get the 6:30 train back across the Pennines, but that was cancelled, so got the next one. This is it behind me. It's now broken down midway between Manchester and Huddersfield.
So, thoughts on HS2's demise from those on the platform?
I think it should have always gone Birmingham to Manchester and then do the east-west part, Manchester-Leeds. The difference in travel when you come up north is so different to how it is down south.
£364 a month to go from Leeds to Manchester. So I mean, even that.
Did you get value for money, do you think?
No, not at all. Not at all. But there's no. What's the other option? I drive. Get stuck on the M62 for 3 hours if there's a crash. So.
The government is pledging what it calls Network North, and the Prime Minister says journey times from Manchester to Bradford will be reduced to 30 minutes. Sheffield to Manchester will be 42 minutes, and less than an hour and a half across to Hull. People hearing that will think, oh good, but what is the reality?
Well, the reality is that these promises are years away from being delivered, and I don't get the sense they can actually trust the current government to deliver its promises, having just seen them ditch a project they've been developing for 15 years.
The suburbs of Sheffield are to benefit from the opening of a new line in the Don Valley.
For me, as a business owner travelling around the north of England, I think having east-west connectivity and better interconnectivity within towns and cities in the north is probably more of a priority for us than an hour or half an hour quicker to London.
Northern leaders try to stop the demise of HS2 to the north to save the bigger picture.
To have a line that was meant to be north to central London that doesn't go to the north really is a failure of what it initially set out, and in my view it's the final nail in the coffin for levelling up.
Road improvement schemes have been promised too. Lots of pledges were made today, but this is a very long game. It could be a decade or more before anyone sees the benefits. Danny Savage, BBC News, Leeds.